Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. This video is about whether I would repurchase any of the palettes in my makeup collection if these came out today or if I lost them or anything like that. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. This video is going to be an overview of 10 palettes that I currently have in my makeup collection and to talk to you about, would I repurchase these? Are these still worth the money if you could still get them? But also to sort of like, hypothetically, if I lost these, if I had to redo my makeup collection all over, would these be palettes that I would prioritize getting in my makeup collection? Yes or no? So how unique are they, and are they worth the money in the long run? That's sort of where I'm coming from with this video, so let's just get to it. Before we get into the video, it may be good to know who I am and what I like doing on this channel. Just in case you're new here, my name is Maaike. Welcome. I live in the Netherlands. I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, and this greatly influences how I feel about makeup. I have been reviewing makeup for more than a decade. I love trying out eyeshadow palettes, essence and Catrice, and getting the use out of my makeup. So if that's something you're interested in, then I do hope you'd like to consider subscribing. This video is all about 10 eyeshadow palettes that I have selected again from my makeup collection to see, are these still worth it? And what I have been noticing myself as I have been doing this series is that I have then put a lot of these palettes in upcoming palette review videos. So if you don't know anything about my channel, I like to do a video every single month where I go back to my older palettes and do some looks with them again, just to see how I feel about them right now. And this also gives me a chance to go back to some of my older things and still be able to make content about it. This is another one of those videos that sort of ties in with it, because I have just really found myself, whenever I filmed one of these, like, would I repurchase videos, there's always a couple of palettes from the selection I'm showing you today that I then go like, oh, next time I plan out my palettes revisited or like older palettes I want to go back to video, I have to put these in because these are so perfect. And I definitely think I have a couple of contenders here again today where I'm like, those I have already gone back to several times ever since I started doing those videos, or they are palettes that are definitely on the like priority list of things I would like to go back to very, very soon. So let me just get to it. To my surprise, I had not yet featured this big guy. This is the Lime Crime Venus XL, the original version. And I have always called this the Mono Renaissance on steroids because this gives you all the berry shades you could possibly want. And that's why I love it. And it's actually this time of the year, June, July time, that I love these colors on myself. It's also perfect for the fall time, but there's just something about these like warmish, pinky berries that really, really speaks to me when it comes to like start of the summer. It's very sort of warm and a little bit of pink, and it just gives me like sultry Italian vibes. That's how I feel about this palette. As far as I know, you can still buy this if you don't have it yet. I definitely kept this one over the Mono Renaissance. I didn't feel that terribly about decluttering my Mono Renaissance in the end, also because I was able to keep the berry shades that I love the best in that palette. Yeah, this has essentially, you're getting a lot of like pinky tones here, some like purpley things. It has some pops of peach, of course that very nice bright neon right there. But if you sort of block out this corner here and the two in the middle, then you can just see that essentially everything is like a mauve, a darker, like not necessarily a darker, but like a warmer mauve tone or a berry shade. My favorite shade in the palette is Botticelli, which is the deepest shade you get, which is one of the best like plummy berry shades I have ever come across. Yes, it is a bit dry and it's not the best for blending, but as liner or just a deepening up shade, it is absolutely essential to have in a palette that is essentially quite mid-toned. But yeah, I still like this, and this is definitely instantly going to go on the list for July to go back to it again, because I know I'm going to love it again if I use this in the summertime. It's one of my favorite summer palettes. But like I said, it's a great fall one as well. So yeah, definitely don't regret having this. I would definitely repurchase this in my collection. As I mentioned, I have kept this over other berry tones in my collection for sure. And I just think it is a great one-stop shop for all things berry toned. So this would definitely leave a gap in my collection if I would like somehow lose all of my makeup, this would definitely be on the list for a repurchase. Another original favorite that I have, and that I have already gone back to several times, is the ABH Subculture. This color story has been duped into the high heavens, so I don't feel you necessarily need to own this particular palette to get the vibe. You can get this vibe from so many other palettes out there, but I have just always loved the original. The original has always been very true to me. I know that so many people hated on this because it didn't have the same formula as the Modern Renaissance. This is a pressed pigment palette. I think it's one of the first pressed pigment palettes to ever have gone viral. But this is just grungy neutrals in a palette. I mean, I just really love this. There aren't a lot of shimmers in here. In fact, I feel the shimmers are the biggest letdown of the palette. I mainly go into these 6 shades here on the end. Those are my shades. Rowdy and Axis I love. I love a bit of Edge. I also love New Wave. This is a great mustard yellow. Mercury is a stunning cool tone. I love Untamed. I love All Star. Like, this has just some really, really good shades. You can make it super neutral. You can go more jewel tone if you like. And what I love about this, because it doesn't have so many shimmer options, I like to pull this in with multi-chromes. Whenever I go back to this, I always pull out some of my Cliona stained glass, and I love it every single time. Like, it's just the best base for multi-chromes, because a lot of multi-chromes have this jewel tone sort of element to them, and this is excellent for it. So the ABH Subculture is definitely one that if I could still get my hands on it, I would repurchase it, or a dupe that has a similar-ish color story. Like I said, I definitely don't think you needed to have this one in particular, but I've tried some of the dupes and I always felt they were a little less saturated than this was. It's one of the things I actually enjoy about this. With a light hand and some good brushes, you can definitely make it work. It's just not really a beginner palette, I would say. But if you still have this one lying about for the fall time, I know I'm going to select this again. Like, this is a no-brainer. I just have been very surprised that I hadn't featured it in this video yet, but this would be an instant repurchase for sure. Next up, a palette that I do show quite often on my channel, but that you can no longer buy, is September Rose's Slush palette. Now, from what I had written down in my notebook, this is one I haven't featured in this video yet, but I could be wrong. So part of my brain is telling me I already featured it, but I took notes on all of the videos I've done previously. I wrote down all the palettes I have already shown, so I now go in with my little list before I sit down to film this video, and the Slush wasn't on it, so that's why I'm throwing it in here, because it is a really fun, bright, colorful color story with a rainbow, and that I've always liked very much for people with my complexion. So if you have light skin, this is one of the best colorful eyeshadow palettes I have ever come across. It has some shimmers, but not too many, and it just has a really good rainbow color story. Really nice gradient. The brand has gone defunct. You can still find some of these palettes on like resale sites that stock the brand, but the brand itself has gone down. The owner closed down the website. So whenever all of that stock is gone, this is going to be gone, and it's probably never going to come back. Which, on the one hand, makes me sad, because this is one of my favorite rainbow palettes, and it's the rainbow palette in my collection. But I feel we get so many rainbow palettes. I mean, by now, getting yourself that Blend Bunny palette, what is it called? The Ellis palette? The collab that they did, something like that can really give this vibe. Blend Bunny does a lot of color stories, rainbows in them. So I definitely would go for something by Blend Bunny, because I do really enjoy their formula. And I would have bought other things from Blend Bunny if I didn't already own this for sure. And I also think that at a cheaper price point, especially if you're in the US, something like the ColourPop Fading into Hue can give you a similar vibe to this without having to buy this one particularly. So as much as I love having this one in my collection and I really adore it, I don't think I would repurchase this. If I lost this, if this somehow came about, there are just too many other rainbow color stories coming out left, right, and center that I don't feel you need this particular one. I also don't feel you need to have heaps of them. If you just have one rainbow color story that works for you, you can make it work and you don't need to have much anything else. So that's why the Slush, I would not repurchase. Also because I can no longer get it, of course, but because I feel I would definitely have other options that are as good or possibly even better than this palette. And here's a palette that I feel that having the knowledge I have now, I don't think I would buy this again. However, I am happy I own it because it made me buy another palette by the same brand. And that palette I like better than this. So this has become superfluous in my collection, you could say. But the palette I still have by them that I bought because I own this, I do enjoy a little bit more. What am I talking about? It's this little monochrome trio from Glossier in the shade Jute. And Jute is right up my street. This is essentially 3 shades of taupe. Who am I? I love a good taupe. You get a matte, a shimmer, like a satin shimmer, and a metallic shimmer with these. But I also own Mist. And Mist is like the purpley mauve tone one. A really pretty cool tone. These are the only 2 cool tone shades in the entire lineup. Everything else is warm. So I definitely picked my favorites, you could say. And I still appreciate this. I really do enjoy it. But I feel that Mist has something to offer that works for me better in this kind of formula. I have other taupe eyeshadows that can do this for me, especially in my singles. But with purples, and finding good cool tone purples can be a lot harder than finding good cool tone taupes. So I feel that this, maybe not as unique as it looked at first glance, but I do really appreciate having it. I like Mist just a touch better. So yeah, would I repurchase this? I don't think so. Like I said, with the knowledge I have now of having owned this and then buying something I like even better in the same formula, I do feel this is no longer a standout in my collection. I definitely have shades that can dupe this very easily, I would say. Do I appreciate it? Do I like it for my personal collection, and is it going to stay? For sure. But if I lost all of my makeup, this would not be a priority to put on the list to repurchase. Something that, again, I feel I would definitely miss in my collection then, going back to something I would want to repurchase. Melt Cheese and Parties. Is this still around? I don't know. I'm not very much into, like, very clued in with what Melt is doing at the minute, save for, of course, the new Smoke Sessions. But Melt is one of those brands that when they have a new palette, you see them everywhere, but they hardly ever seem to be promoting their older releases, which I think is a shame because Cheese and Parties is one of the best palettes that has ever been released, in my opinion. It is essentially a deeper mauve tone palette that has both warm and cool tones, so this can work on a lot of people. I used to own the original stack, the Cheese and Parties stack, and that only had the deeper tones. It didn't have these like lighter lavenders. It didn't have it. It didn't have as many cool tones either. So I really appreciated that they expanded it with these 8 shades so that you get twice as many shades as you do in the stack that they used to do. Because this, for instance, is new to this palette. These 2 are new to this palette. And I think Sleepwalk as well. I think it was Mean Streak, Cheese and Parties, Last Caress, and Skeleton Kiss. I believe those were the 4 shades in the original stack. But we definitely got some more cool tones in here with the palette, which makes me really happy because those lighter shades is what makes it work for my skin tone. So I do really appreciate this. If I still can get this, this would be an instant repurchase because it's one of my favorite palettes in my entire collection. I'm not gonna lie. It's one that I always go back to. If I need that mauve rose tone, this is the palette I think of. This one. I don't tend to go for like super light things in that regard, and this in the fall time is absolute fire. Absolute fire. So yes, Melt Cheese and Parties would definitely be a repurchase. Next up is this guy. This is by Nomad. This is the outer box. For Nomad, I keep all of the outer boxes because they always add something special to the palette experience, I find. Here's the palette itself. It has this like holographic rainbow sheen on it. Love it. So the packaging is gorgeous. It's the Verona Amore e Morte eyeshadow palette. So the Verona palette, let's call it that. And this is really pretty. It's just a bit cumbersome to use because it has the 2 flaps that go out from the middle. And then here's a palette. So you get pinks and reds on one side and cool tones on the other. Really pretty. It is definitely different from anything else I have in my collection, up to a point, because I kind of feel it's similar to my Melt Muerte. You know what I mean? This is stunning though. It has some really pretty shades. It has good blendability, but truth be told, if you know anything about me, then you know that I go for this side of the palette more so than for the other side. I especially love these like purpley tones that we get towards the bottom. This is pretty too, but some of these shades don't really go together. So for me, knowing that I know what I know now and having other Nomad palettes as well, this is not my favorite palette by Nomad by any means. I would repurchase their Haunted Europe in a heartbeat. This one, not so much. This is not something that I feel is an essential for me. It's fun, it's bright, it's colorful, it has some shades I really don't have anywhere else, that's for sure, but I wouldn't miss it in my collection. I wouldn't go like, oh, that Nomad palette is one that I really miss having. Said no one ever. So not because I don't like the brand, but because of this color story just not really being something that I feel I need to use a lot. Shall we get the big guys out of the way first? Next up is this guy. This is the Blend Bunny The Dollhouse palette. And I already mentioned Blend Bunny in this video, of course, and I do think they have a really nice formula. They have some really stunning bright palettes as well, but the Dollhouse is their neutral palette. And this was promoted as a cool tone palette. And then I got it home and I was like, this isn't all that cool tone, sadly. It definitely has cooler tones, but this entire row, it's warm. This row is warm. This row is warm. This row is like neutral browns. So I really only get 2 rows of like cooler tones for myself anyways. This row of the deepest, darkest shades are way too dark for me. They don't work. They don't show up. Like in the pen, you can see that they all have a slight different undertone. So there are variations on blacks. But for me, it just doesn't, it just all looks the same because it is so dark that it loses all contrast on me. So for me, this is the deepest I can go. This does have 2 rows of shimmer, which Blend Bunny usually doesn't do. So I do like that about it. But I don't like that I'm getting a blue here. I wanted this to be like a soft mauve, like here. And then, for instance, what was it again? Oh yeah, this pink has a very strong peach undertone as well, which I feel doesn't really go with some of the mattes. So in the shimmers, I find we get even more warm tones than in the mattes. And what I also don't like, the packaging on the front still looks pristine, but if you put it anywhere where you have eyeshadow, it's just gonna stain really easily. I mean, I don't know what happened to this. Maybe with a declutter, it got like some eyeshadow on it, and it looks a bit grubby because of that. So don't love the packaging for that reason. I like the concept of the palette a lot, but I don't feel this is super unique, and I definitely had different expectations going into this one when I bought it than what I ended up experiencing when I was using it. So for me, this would not be a repurchase. This is not something I'm going to put my money towards again, even though I do have, for instance, the Surge palette from Blend Bunny that I do really like. That one is no longer available, but that one I do feel is truly unique in my collection. This one was a bit of a letdown. Next up is this guy, the Persona Identity 2. And if you're like, hey, Micah, didn't you declutter that? I almost did. Yes, I said I was going to declutter it, and then as I was putting my declutter pile together to finally give it away to friends and family and colleagues, I decided to pull this. I decided not to get rid of this because there are just shades in here that really call my name. The green and this also purpley, like blue shade is really, really stunning. I also really like this dark brown shimmer. Like, it just has some really, really good shades. I'm not going to lie. Have I used this a lot? No. Is it a must-have in my collection? Also no. But it's got gray jewel tones, and that's why I feel I should keep it. It is mainly shimmers, and one of the things that I don't love is that this matte is so incredibly warm toned compared to everything else. Like, this is a neutral. This is warm-ish, but can still work. But I feel that this shade goes with this really well, but it doesn't really go with any of the other shimmers we get in here. So that's a bit of a shame. So a better sort of matte crease shade would have been appreciated. I think that's the thing that's mainly throwing me off. But I'm also like, you know, I have the Identity 1 as well. So maybe I should just use them together and use some of the mattes from my Identity 1 together with this. And I think that can be a nice pairing for sure. So yes, Persona Cosmetics, Identity 2. A great palette for sure if you love your jewel tones. But for me, it would not be a repurchase. Persona Cosmetics is also quite difficult to get if you live in the European Union like I do. I lucked out and was able to buy the 2 palettes, get free shipping on the 2 palettes, and then I was also not hit with custom fees. And I just haven't bought from them ever since. Not because I don't like the brand, but because they are just... It's just a bit pricey to be buying from them, and because I cannot try it anywhere, it's just a bit of a letdown for sure. So yeah, Persona Identity 2 is a beautiful palette. It really, really is. I love the formula of it too. Very nice and blendable shades, but not something that I feel is super unique in my collection. Michelou Cosmetics then, this is their Witchcraft palette. This brand I don't think is still around. The owner of this brand was like sending out PR to people for a hot minute, and then all of a sudden the website just never updated anymore. I know some people ordered and then never got their package. It's one of those brands that just kind of petered out. And one of the things that was always very strange about this website was that they like didn't do a spell check, so that it was littered with spelling errors, making it also seem not that trustworthy, I feel. But yeah, the Witchcraft palette is really, really beautiful and unique. I really, really wish we would get more of this. I mean, we have so many indie brands that tap into the spookiness, and this, I feel, has not been replicated. This grungy, warmish browns with plums and greens, I don't have seen anybody do it. Not Unearthly Cosmetics, not Bella Beauty Bar, Gourmand Girls. I mean, there are so many indie brands out now that could potentially do a palette like this, but none of them have been doing it. So I feel this is very unique in my collection for sure. I definitely do like it. It's a great fall palette, fall-winter season. It can even be a little bit festive. This Magic shade is absolutely stunning. It was like, not even like a duochrome or a multi-chrome, but it's just super sparkly and really intense, and you can really build it up. So this has some really stunning shades. I really appreciate this palette and owning it, but I don't think I would run out and get it. Also because it's no longer available, of course. I would just be going with a different indie brand and buying something similarly that was most like it if I could. So yeah, call out to all the indie brands. Remake this in like an updated formula. That would be great, because that way more people can enjoy these cool shades, because this is a special palette. Finally, and this is one that I do think I would repurchase, is the Cutie Analog from Nabla. I have decluttered nearly all of my Nabla Cutie palettes by now. They're still in the box somewhere in my house. I do still have all of them because I like having the complete collection, not gonna lie. But the Analog is currently the only one that's still part of my active makeup collection, and I went back to this in May, and I was like, I need to feature it again in another video because I want to rave about the Cutie Analog yet again. It is still available in some places. Places like Beauty Bay, I believe, still stock this. This is one of my favorite warm-toned eyeshadow palettes. If not my favorite. It's that good. I don't love a lot of warm tones, but I'm really having a warm tone moment at the minute, so I decided to go back to this again, and I loved it. It reconfirmed again why I like this palette so much. It looks very orange, doesn't it, in the pan? What if I told you that these warm, like neutrally brown shades actually have so much red in them that they pull pink? Same for these like deeper tones as well. This is, of course, a yellow, but it's a very soft yellow. It's not where's the Persona? when I think of a yellow tone gold that doesn't work for me, I always think of the yellow gold that's in here. Like, that's almost like, it's not even a gold. It's more yellow than it is a gold. But that, I don't like. But this, do you just see that difference? It's that, like, almost there kind of gold. It's got a bit of champagne running through it almost. So that's one I like. And this looks like a straight up peach. But then when it hits the light, it has that pinky gold reflect. It is really, really stunning all over the lid. I felt like $1,000,000 wearing this again last May. So yes, this would definitely be one I would repurchase if I lost this, or if I somehow like had to repurchase some of my makeup. This would definitely be one that I would want to get because it is my favorite warm tone palette. So I just wanted to give this another shout out. If you have never tried the Nabla eyeshadow formula, I know they do so many different palettes, and there are so many other things that people like, but I think this is still one of my favorites by them, and it's just sad to not see them do as much makeup like eyeshadow releases anymore. I wish we get more of these 6 pans because these are great. So that's it. There you have it. Those were some eyeshadow palettes I wanted to discuss with you today. Would I repurchase them, yes or no? Let me know in a comment down below what eyeshadow palettes from this pile you personally own and whether you would repurchase any of those yourself. I would be very curious to know. And of course, check back again later in the week because I do make videos 4 times a week over on this channel. I have a second channel where I post about books and fashion and some lifestyle-y things, where I also like vlog whenever I travel, and that goes on to my second channel. The link is down below, and I do post reviews over on the blog daily as well. So I will catch you some in one of those places for sure in the next couple of days. Till then, I hope you have a great day. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.